Ah yes, we've entered the world of slashers. My introduction to the world of horror. You got your Nightmare on Elm Streets, your Friday the 13th, your Child's Plays, and our subject for today, and my personal favorite, Scream, released in 1996. I've seen this movie at least 50 times, and sadly I don't think that's an exaggeration. So even though it's been a while since I've watched it, I know this movie like the back of my hand, so this one's gonna be fun. Join me as I revisit the slasher classic, Scream. Let's get into it. Title card, Drew Barrymore. She was one of the more popular and known names attached to this project, appearing on all the promo and even the front cover of this movie, which in hindsight makes sense, but you'd be confused back in 1996 watching the first 10 minutes of this movie. But we'll get to that. Drew's character is named Casey Becker, and kudos to the movie because they don't waste time setting this up. Like right after the title card, Casey is picking up the phone and is talking to Spooky Man. And let's get this right out of the way. The Scream films are iconic when it comes to the slasher genre, but I'd be lying if I said that Roger L. Jackson's voice as Ghostface wasn't a huge draw for me, and I'm sure for a lot of you. Yeah, this is our first film in the franchise, so it's our first time hearing it, but that voice is legendary, especially when he starts off so calm, and the more he talks to Casey, the more sinister he gets. And then we get this line.
I want to know who I'm looking at.
You see, this guy had already called multiple times, saying he had the wrong number, but for some reason he still keeps calling back. But you can tell he's talking to Casey to get her a little more comfortable. I mean, she was kind of feeling him at first, even telling him she doesn't have a boyfriend, which we learned to not be true. But the chills that must have ran down her spine when she hears,
I want to know who I'm looking at.
Right after asking him why he wants to know her name, and you just see Casey's face immediately drop. And that's what made Scream so good to me. Not only the making fun of slasher movie tropes and then proceeding to commit those same sins as an attempt at satire, but it's the realism in a sense. You have a less likely chance of seeing Freddy in your dreams or visiting Camp Crystal Lake, but this can actually happen, and it just adds even more to the scare factor. Casey isn't a punk though. She hangs up on him and he calls back and she's about to cuss him out, but...
Listen, asshole!
No, you listen, you little bitch. You hang up on me again, I'll gut you like a fish, understand?
That right there. I love that. More of that, please. We then get a confirmation that Spooky Man is indeed watching Casey, and she does something that I just pointed out in my Sinister video. Locks all of the doors and windows when that should have already been done. I don't care how safe of a neighborhood you think you live in. I will never, I repeat, never leave my doors unlocked, especially at night. And she commits another sin, which isn't really her fault, more of her parents, living in a really big and nice looking house in the middle of nowhere. Too bad, so sad.
What do you want?
To see what your insides look like.
Well, then turn to page 54. Oh wait, wrong movie. Gotta say, Drew does a really good job of showing pure terror and dread. I always feel so bad for her in this opening scene. It's Drew Barrymore. Look at that little face. How could you murder this face? The doorbell rings and Casey gives us the classic "Who's there" line. Shortly after, she gets scrutinized by the killer for doing such a thing. Gotta say, they were ahead of their time with this one. Who's there and investigating strange noise are tropes that are still being done to this day. She then threatens to call her boyfriend that she said she didn't have earlier, but he's a little tied up at the moment. Oh no, they didn't got my boy Steve. Ghost Boy wants to play a game. Or a trivia. She gets a question right, Steve lives. She gets a question wrong, well, let's just say Steve will be taking a really long nap. First question, who was the killer in Halloween? It happens to be one of Casey's favorite movies, so she gets it right.
Michael Myers.
Second question, trick question. Who was the killer in Friday the 13th? Not Jason Voorhees. It was his mother getting revenge for her baby boy. And now, unfortunately, we're about to see what Steve's insides look like. Forgot how graphic some of these movies are. Sucks that in the sequels they had to tone down some of the violence, at least in the original trilogy. Last question, where am I? I don't fucking know. If I knew that, I would have left already. A chair gets launched through the glass and our chase scene begins. Also gotta add in the house potentially burning down because she never turned off the stove with her popcorn on it. Didn't grow up in this era, but let me know if anyone remembers popping popcorn on the stove back in the day. Casey sneaks out the back and we can see Ghost Boy running around looking for her. Another question though. There are a lot of questions in this video. If he's looking at you and you're outside looking at him looking for you, why are you still near the house? You could have been gone. Like, yeah, he might be able to see you through the glass, but he's looking in the opposite direction. You could have at least ran across the street, hide behind a tree or something. The moment you see your parents pull up, run over to them and be like, guys, don't go in there. There's a psychopath in our house. But that's not what happens. Of course it isn't. I love how he turns around like he already knew she was there, but he was just waiting for her to peek her head up. She screams and then he grabs her through the glass. She bops him with the phone and runs. Casey, we have no time to be staring at your dead boyfriend. Like, yeah, it's shocking, but he's already gone. You still have a chance. Also, the Ghostface costume in the first one is a little bit goofy looking. He slims down throughout the movies, but with this first one, everything big. He catches up to Casey and... he gets her onto the ground and begins choking her, but she knees him in the balls and tries to get away. She attempts to yell out to her mom, but conveniently her vocal cords are fucked. You got lucky, Ghost Boy. If you hadn't went all respect the pouch on Casey's neck, she easily could have screamed for help. Well, looks like it's curtain closed for our girl Casey. She does grab his mask though. Of course we don't see who it is, it's the beginning of the movie. Casey does however see, but she won't be able to tell because she'll be dead. I just think for her she at least wanted to see the face of the person who was cutting her life so short. He continues to stab her as her parents look throughout the house, not being able to find her. The scene of her mother talking to her over the phone and she's being dragged away is always always so heartbreaking. Just putting myself in the shoes of a mom who walks outside to see her daughter hanging from a tree with her guts on the outside. Yeah, that's what happens, by the way. Scream be having some very disturbing imagery. The camera zooming in towards Casey's body, her mother screaming in the background, and then it flashes to black. Jesus, take the wheel. Yeah, so Drew was on the cover, Drew was in the marketing, Drew dies in the first 10 minutes. I would have paid to see people's faces back in 1996 when they realized Drew Barrymore is not the star of this movie, but instead, Neve Campbell, who had just gotten her start in acting 2 years before this film came out. Sydney Prescott, the final girl of all final girls, getting some work done on her computer as we can hear rustling outside of her window. It's her boyfriend, Billy Loomis, sneaking into her window to see her and scaring her in the process. Her dad then knocks on the door to check on her. He's heading out of town in the morning for the weekend. She tries to play it off like she wasn't screeching 5 seconds before this. He goes to bed and Billy's still there. You know, sneaking into your girlfriend's window to see her can be seen as romantic. Don't know if it'll fly today, but no, he's just being horny. Creepily so, might I add. Sorry, Sid, nothing about this screams romantic to me. They kiss and Billy starts to get a little handsy, and somehow after this he says he's not trying to rush her into doing anything. Doesn't seem like it. She flashes him some titty and he leaves and we cut to the next morning. Oh great, another one of my worst fears. High schoolers. The news is here, police are at every corner, it's going down. We meet Sydney's best friend, Tatum. She lets her in on all the grisly details on Casey and Steve's murder last night. No one knows who did it, they're interrogating everybody and they have no leads. Tatum says this is the worst crime since... well, we don't talk about that, but we'll get to it. We meet the rest of our crew, and is that who I think it is? My boy Matthew Lillard and Jamie Kennedy? We got Shaggy and Son of the Mask in the same movie. You could have chose any other Jamie Kennedy movie, yet you chose one of the worst sequels of all time. Point taken, that movie was indeed terrible. These two are Stu Macher and Randy Meeks. Oh, Randy, I'm cherishing our time together. Not for this movie, but for the sequel. Anyway, they're all having a conversation about recent events, such as the killings and being interrogated by the police, Tatum calling Stu a sexist because he assumes the killer is a man and not a woman, and Stu explaining to Sydney how to properly gut a person. The conversation overall is very insensitive, but also hilarious.
I didn't kill anybody. Nobody said you did.
Ha, foreshadowing. Sydney has trauma, so she's not amused and dips out. I do, however, like the liver in the mailbox line. And as a lover of dad jokes, liver alone is goated. We cut to Sydney getting home from school, and what does her dad do for work? This house is huge and beautiful. She's on the phone with Tatum, and she's coming over to hang out later. She sits on the couch to watch TV, and every single channel is covering Casey and Steve's murder. And of course, we get to a specific reporter who just felt the need to bring up Sydney's mother, who got killed only a year ago. Yeah, see why this is a sore spot for her. This is Gail Weathers, played by the iconic Courtney Cox. She's made a couple of appearances already, but I figured we'd address her now. Sid takes a nap, but she gets woken up by the phone ringing, and it's Tatum, who's running late. The phone rings again, but it's not Tatum this time. Spooky Man is back, and we get the first
Hello, Sydney.
of the franchise. Sydney thinks it's Randy, but we know it's not. Or is it? No, it's not. Or is... Will you shut up? He tells her he's outside on her front porch, and kudos to Sydney because she actually goes out there. I commend you, Sid, but you could have at least grabbed a weapon or something. As she's about to hang up, still thinking it's Randy pulling a prank on her, we get some gut punches, especially for Sydney.
If you hang up on me, you'll die just like your mother. Do you want to die, Sydney? Your mother sure didn't.
God, I just love his voice. This concept is just so cool. The fact that you're speaking to your potential future killer and you don't even know it at first, and the further you get into the conversation, the more you realize that this guy is probably outside of your house, or even worse, he's already in it. Also, she calls him a cretin before this. That's gotta be like the first in horror movies. I don't see much of people casually calling each other cretins. She heads inside and locks the door, but oh, our boy is already in there. He bursts out of a closet door attacking Sydney, but she hits him with the weave. Also, him falling down after pushing her down and them shuffling around each other is unintentionally hilarious. He slams her head on the ground to daze her and taunts her with the knife, which I've always thought was a really cool looking knife. I want to find one in real life. He raises his knife up to stab her, but Sydney kicks him in the chest, and damn, how hard was that kick? He launched like 2 feet in the air. Also, you probably could have killed her then if you weren't dramatically raising your knife up in the air like this. She goes to run out the front door, but it's still on the chain lock. She's not able to get it off in time before he gets back up, so up the stairs it is, which is funny because earlier when he asked her what her favorite scary movie is, she criticized the entire genre for this exact trope, running up the stairs when being chased by the killer instead of just going out the front door. She runs into her bedroom and locks the door, and then opens her closet door to be another barrier. Bet she's never been so happy to have a design flaw in her room until now. He gets the door open, but he's not able to get through. It's like when a character is getting chased by a bigger monster and they run into somewhere small, and as hard as the monster tries, it can't get through. That's Ghostface right now, just flailing around his knife, stabbing at nothing like a little baby. Sydney picks up the phone to call the police, but the line's dead, so she uses her computer to dial. They ask what her emergency is, but when she turns around, Ghostface is gone. Or was he ever there to begin with? Just moments after, Billy shows up. The killer's in my house, Billy. You gotta help. You sick son of a bitch. You got a cell phone and didn't tell me? I thought we were getting them together. But also, is there no trust here? His phone drops out of his pocket and you just assume it was him? Like having a cell phone back then was just starting to become a normal thing, especially in the late 90s. But even then, it was still considered a luxury item. But I'm pretty sure Billy's dad is like a lawyer or something. A really popular and respected one as well. So him having a cell phone wouldn't be impossible. I'm sure that can get annoying for law enforcement though, because whenever Billy Boy here gets in trouble, he just calls daddy. Dewey's at the door. Forgot to introduce him. Gotta love Deputy Dewey. Him screaming from her screaming while Billy is upstairs chairs waiting to get arrested is just a hilarious mess. He's doing his best to try to get through to Sydney, but she's giving him the cold shoulder. How long have you two been together? She didn't even attempt to hear him out. Finally, Tatum gets there, and this is where we find out Tatum and Dewey are brother and sister. And I have a point to make about that, but we're gonna have to wait until a later scene. They all head to the police department while Gil is being a nuisance once again. And on top of that, they can't find Sydney's dad anywhere. How peculiar. Also, why the fuck do you have the girl sitting right across the room where the man she just accused of trying to kill her is being interrogated? At least close the blinds all the way. Billy is doing his best to plead his case, but they're still gonna have to keep him in holding. At least until they can pull his phone records. To make sure he didn't make those phone calls, of course. He gets emotional and turns back around. And I get maybe he's trying to gain sympathy from Sydney, so he's just staring at her in hopes to get her to come around. But dude, this is not the face for that. You look like you want to kill her right now. Sydney is distraught, but I don't think she knows what to think. Even if she wanted to believe him, it's just no way to know for sure that he wasn't the one who called her tonight. To make matters worse, they try to track down where this costume came from, but everybody is selling it. So we have a killer on the loose, we got a kid in custody who we think did it, but we don't really know for sure, and the costume that the killer wears is untraceable. You know, I usually don't feel bad for cops in these movies, but they sure are in a conundrum. Look at you learning new words. Gotta keep the people on their toes. Tatum is ready to go, so Dewey escorts them out the back. There are news outlets everywhere outside, so that's probably the best bet. Too bad Gale had the same idea. Tatum waves them off, but Sydney has more cynical plans. Remember, people, don't always be fooled by a friendly face.
So, how's the book? Well, it'll be out later this year. I'll look for it. I'll send you a copy.
See, stuff like this is why I love Sydney's character so much. She's not afraid to get her hands dirty. She will scrap if need be. Let's give some context though. Gale is writing a book on Sydney's mom and her murder and all that. The man that was put in jail for it is named Cotton Weary, who does make a cameo in this movie, but he's more prevalent in the sequels. And Gale here doesn't believe Cotton is the one who did it, saying how Sydney is wrong and she got the wrong guy. She's exploiting her mother's death for value. Therefore, you get to the face. They head to Tatum's house, and while they're chilling, a phone call comes in for Sydney. And it's not good news.
Hello?
Hello, Sydney.
But if Billy's in jail, who is this on the phone? I'm playing stupid for the bit, I know who this is. Sydney, however, does not. Ghost Boy taunts her over the phone saying how she got the wrong guy again, and that's when it possibly clicks for Sydney that the guy on the phone might be the same guy who killed her mother. But that will require her to do something that these days everyone hates doing, admitting she was wrong. The killer hangs up and Dewey runs out holding a gun. What the fuck were you gonna do, Dewey? Shoot the telephone? I don't think I could get any sleep at night in this town knowing there's a murderer on the loose. Although there are some things out there that can probably help. Is it the sponsor of today's video? It's the sponsor of today's video, yes. Today's video is sponsored by Mantis Sleep. Listen, I've watched a lot of horror movies in my time, and a good handful of them have made me lose sleep. And now that it's my job, man am I glad that Mantis Sleep reached out to me and sent me one of their top-rated sleeping masks. It makes falling asleep at the end of a long day running from a psychopath that much worth it. With their 100% blackout sleep mask, you can kiss being woken up by the outside light peeking in your room goodbye. And with an extremely premium touch and feel, which makes the sleeping experience that much better. I personally use their silk sleep mask. The cool thing is that they have a wide variety of all different kinds of masks. They got steam masks, cooling masks, masks with Bluetooth speakers built into them. You've been having a hard time getting the kiddos to sleep lately? They got masks for them too. And way more sleeping accessories such as eye cooling cups and white noise machines, which I personally use every night. Click my link down in the description below and use code GRIEVES to get 10% off at checkout. That's GRIEVES for 10% off at checkout. And thank you, Mantis Sleep, for sponsoring today's video. Alright, now let's check back in with our friends at Woodsboro. The next morning, everyone's having breakfast, and for some reason, we're just watching news coverage of them talking about what happened to Sydney's mom while she's in the room, and they're just comforting her like, it's okay, Sid. Change the channel. Also, do the TV stations in this town only show the news? I haven't seen a regular channel being played once in this movie. Dewey is the only one with some sense to turn this the hell off. Sydney gets to school and is almost immediately hassled by a reporter, and what she says is out of pocket.
So how does it feel to be almost brutally butchered? People want to know. They have a right to know.
A right to know? How does it feel? First of all, you don't have a right to know anything about me. And second of all, what other emotion am I supposed to have from almost being murdered? It's not a good feeling, I'll tell you that. They're about to head into the building, but Sydney decides to pay Gale a visit. And she's understandably on defense. Sydney says she's not here to fight and just wants to talk. Off the record. Gale still thinks Cotton is innocent and that his story hasn't changed since last year. The only thing he admitted to was doing the devil's tango with Sydney's mom. But Sydney says no and that her mother would never touch him. Well, Sid, word around town is that your mom got around. Bars! But even Sydney isn't fully on board with Cotton being the killer completely, and she's gonna have a hard time confronting the fact that she may have been wrong. Even Gale catches on, guessing that the killer is still out there and that these recent murders and her mom's murder is probably related. Oh, she's good. That's why she makes the big bucks. We cut to the school as Sydney asks Stu if Billy's pissed about what happened, just when two dudes in Ghostface costumes come running down the hallway. And Sydney, of course, is not amused. I know people do this hand motion when they don't want people to see them crying, and I'm sure in practice it feels normal, but in execution it looks a little funny. However, she ends up running into Billy. Awkward.
Sorry, please understand.
Understand what? I have a girlfriend who would rather accuse me of being a psychopathic killer than touch me.
What? How do those two correlate? Hey, yeah, I know you just accused me of trying to murder you, but why can't we go to third base? Are your thoughts only on trying to bump uglies? I think we have more important things at hand. And somehow in the next few sentences, he makes it worse. Sid, you haven't been the same since your mom was brutally murdered last year. Move on. and let me get some head. Okay, he didn't say that last part, but still. He tries to compare it to his parents being divorced and his mom leaving him, but those aren't even remotely the same thing. A parent dying is not just something you can get over, especially a year after it happened. That's insane.
I am sorry if my traumatized life is an inconvenience to you and your perfect existence.
What? Nobody said that.
It's crazy how there's really no difference between that and the Scary Movie version. They expected us to take that seriously? In the girls' bathroom, we see Sid trying to get herself together, and then we hear one of the most heartless conversations ever. Blondie here calls Sydney a murderer, her mom a slut, and her a psychopath in a matter of minutes. Teenagers suck. As a victim of bullying, especially back in middle school and elementary school, it never feels nice. Although it took a family member passing away in high school for people to finally leave me alone. Crazy how that has to happen for you not to be an asshole. Sorry for trauma dumping. Back to Sydney. I feel like she should have busted the stall open and whipped both their asses. We see how she gets down. She can take them. After being verbally KO'd, the killer appears from one of the stalls, and Sydney does something that actually made me yell out loud. That ain't Sydney Prescott, that's Laura fucking Croft. She just broke Ghostface's ankles and got out of Dodge. This is why Sydney is the final girl of all final girls. We cut to Dewey, who's being hassled by Gail, but I don't think he minds that much. I feel like she started flirting because she wanted information at first, but they both definitely have the hots for each other. Although I'd be kind of turned off if I heard this.
Of course, you don't look a day over 12.
That's, thank you? Just then, the principal comes over the intercom and announces that all classes are suspended until further notice, which makes all the students happy, until they hear there's a curfew at 9 o'clock and everyone's pissed. Stu gets the bright idea to throw a party, completely ignoring said curfew, and somehow Sydney agrees to attend this, with some persuading from Tatum, of course. We then cut to the principal playing around with the ghost face mask in the mirror. Didn't you just expel 2 kids for this? He then hears a knock at the door, but when he goes to check it, no one's there. Typical. More knocking, still no one there. He thinks it might be some of the students playing a prank on him, which gains the attention of Fred the janitor, aka Wes Craven. This is like one of my favorite cameos. The literal director of this movie and the writer and director of 1984's Nightmare on Elm Street. Hence why he's dressed head to toe like Freddy Krueger, which is the scary cherry on top. RIP to a legend. Principal Henry continues to look around to find who's ever messing with him, and unfortunately he's about to find out, as the killer pops out and stabs him multiple times in the stomach, adding to our very short victim list. He's only the 3rd person to die in this movie so far. Tatum is trying to get Sydney to look at her mother's case from a different perspective. I'm sure she had a certain idea of who her mother was in her head, but you start to hear things around town, rumors start to spread, and you feel like you don't know the person like you thought you did. Someone's watching them, by the way, just thought I'd point that out. Thank you, James, for your riveting commentary. You've barely been in this video. Hey, it's not my fault, you didn't give me enough lines. I'm tired. Anyway, there's not just rumors of Cotton and Sydney's mother, but various other men as well. And Sydney is in denial. But this doesn't inherently make Sydney's mom a bad person. Yeah, cheating is bad, but we come to learn in later movies that her mom was very troubled. Her trauma was a driving factor for all of her actions. But I'm getting ahead of myself. We then cut to my favorite scene in this movie. Randy and Stu are at the video store and they see Billy.
Now that's in poor taste.
What?
If you were the only suspect in a senseless bloodbath, would you be standing in the horror section?
That's a good point. But also, who are these girls? Are we being unfaithful, Billy? I mean, aren't him and Sid technically still together? This entire scene is just all my reasons for loving Matthew Lillard and Jamie Kennedy. Not only is Randy my favorite character in the franchise, his banter with Stu about if Billy is guilty or not is just hilarious.
There's a formula to it. A very simple formula. Everybody's a suspect.
Billy is not very happy about these accusations and presses Randy about it, who immediately folds under pressure. Yeah, that'll show him, Billy. Prove you're not the killer by threatening someone in a public establishment. Genius. Sydney and Tatum are getting snacks for the party, and also there's a killer in the freezer. Hey, what's he doing there? Dewey meets back up with the sheriff, and we find out those calls came from Neil Prescott's phone, Sydney's father. Well, tickle my feet and call me Sally. What? Also, tomorrow just happens to be a year since Sydney's mother was killed. This is getting juicy. So we're just gonna ignore what you just said? It's final act time. We get to the party, and Jesus! I know we're in California, so a house like this isn't too exciting, but these kids' parents are making bank. They head inside and Stu is dressed like Hugh Hefner for some reason. Gail is also here, which how the hell did she hear about this party? It wasn't Dewey because he asked her what she's doing here. Mind you, we get a jump scare right before this. I love Scream, but boy, there are a good handful of those in here. Usually I'd hold that against the movie, but it has enough charm to where I can let it slide just this once. Gail's plan is to sneak a camera into the party and place it somewhere so they can have eyes on the house at all times. Stu asks Tatum to grab him a beer and it must be cold in the house or something. While she's doing this, the door to the garage closes and we get yet another jump scare, this time a cat. But the killer is also here. Tatum thinks it's Randy being a goofball, but she soon realizes this is the actual guy. So Ghostface the voice? Goated. Ghostface the killer? Hot trash. I just thought maybe Sydney has some otherworldly survival instincts. And while she's good, Tatum gives this man the works. He sucks. But he still gets the best of her as she tries to escape through the little door in the garage. Ghost Boy hits the button to lift the door up and her head gets crushed in the process. Silly Tatum. That door's for cats. And now I'm gonna circle back to something I mentioned earlier. Regarding Tatum, she barely gets mentioned in future movies. Mind you, this is Dewey's sister. And Dewey is a legacy character. He appears in all of the Scream movies except the ones released after he dies. And also, Sidney's best friend. Like, yeah, I'm obviously over-exaggerating. She gets mentioned very briefly in future films, but damn, they sure gloss over it. Anyway, we got a killer on the loose at a party full of drunk and dumb teenagers. You can't make this shit up. Everyone's now heading out due to the curfew. Look at them being responsible. Sidney's also about to dip and calls for Tatum, who doesn't answer cause, yeah. And Billy's here. And to think I was having a good day. Him and Sidney head upstairs to talk. Randy's heartbroken because he has a crush on her, and Stu doesn't think he had a chance to begin with. Also, look at the packaging for Cheetos in the 90s. I wasn't alive back then, but this just somehow feels so nostalgic to me. The camera that Gail plays is working, but there's a 30-second delay on it. That'll come into play later. Billy and Sidney are upstairs talking, and somehow she's been gaslit into not grieving her mother anymore. That was her whole mom. She can grieve for as long as she likes. You can also grieve by hitting the subscribe button. That sounded better in my head. Anyway, Billy and Sidney start to get freaky, and we get another one of my favorite scenes in the movie. Randy explaining the rules of how to survive a horror movie. I used to say I'll be right back all the time after watching this. Moments like this is easy what makes this one of my favorite slashers to watch. Gail and Kenny don't seem too amused. Also, Kenny, stop playing with your Cheetos. All of a sudden, someone bangs on the door, but it's just Dewey. A car was reported on the side of the road, and he asks Gail if she wants to come with him. Someone calls the house, and Randy picks it up, and they find out Principal Hembry is dead and is apparently hanging from the goalpost on the football field. Jeez. All the guys in the room go head out to sea, leaving Randy by himself. I should mention that we keep flashing back and forth between Billy and Sidney getting it on. Gail and Dewey are being all cute when the guys who just left the house come speeding down the road. And Dewey has the nerve to yell freeze. Yeah, I'm sure they can hear you with their loud engines and booze yelling. They both dive out of the way, and this leads to them kissing. Dewey, you sly dog. They also find Sidney's dad's car. Dewey grabs Gail and they both head back to the house. And I hate to break it to you, dude, but your sister's dead and the killer's already there. We cut back to the Lovebirds, and Sidney is asking some very good and critical questions about who Billy called when he was arrested, yada yada yada. Which is good, Sidney. Very good. However, a little too late since you already banged him. Probably should have asked these things before. Billy is offended and wants to know what he can do for Sid to not think he's a murderer. Well, getting stabbed is a good start. Yeah, so the killer appears, stabbing Billy multiple times, and he falls over very dramatically, might I add. Sidney books it and she's able to get out through the window in the attic, but not without the killer trying to grab her and her falling off the roof. Luckily, there was some cushioning below, but she also sadly discovers Tatum's body. We cut to Randy and we get the classic look behind you scene. This is one of those sequences I loved as a child. Also, Randy telling Jamie Lee Curtis to turn around in the movie while the killer is behind him and his real name being Jamie is genius. Sidney makes it to the van where Kenny is and he lets her in. They see the killer behind Randy as we just saw, but you remember that 30-second delay I mentioned earlier?
Oh my god! They killed Kenny! You bastard!
Well, Kenny's dead, and Sidney, you're about to be too if you don't close that damn door. She makes it out and books it. Soon after, Gail and Dewey walk up. A little too late, don't you think? Dewey heads into the house and Gail heads to the van to call the police for backup. She notices blood on the ground and jumps inside and starts dialing. But not before Randy pops up scaring the living daylights out of her. She bops him in the face with the phone and starts to pull off. But blood is covering the windshield. And Kenny's body is on the roof. She swerves to get him off and drives away. Poor Kenny. She doesn't get too far, however, because Sidney jumps in front of the van to get her to stop, causing her to swerve down the road all the way down a hill and into a tree. All of this happens one after another, by the way. It's the pure definition of shit escalating very quickly. So Gail's dead. Not really, though. Sidney runs back to the house to find Dewey. He opens the door and she looks happy to see him. Looking good, Dewey. I'm not the brightest of people, but is that knife supposed to be in your back? Fuck no. Sidney runs to the police car and locks all of the doors. And usually this would be a good idea if the police officer who has the keys wasn't outside with the killer who also now has the keys, cause he stabbed said police officer. He gets inside, they tussle a little bit, and he somehow disappears. Randy comes running up saying how he found Tatum's body and how he thinks Stu is the one who did it. And speak of the devil, Stu also runs up. I remember also liking this scene a lot. Sidney being very conflicted on who to believe and who not to believe. She does the smart thing and slams the door on both of them. Just then, Billy comes down, or should I say falls down the stairs. He calms her down and takes the gun from her and they let Randy in. And then we get the twist.
Stu's flipped out. He's gone mad.
We all go a little mad sometimes.
No, Billy!
That's right, it was Billy the whole time. Okay, I can't even pretend to be surprised for the bit. I've seen this movie 50 million times. I know it was Billy. But another plot twist, it was also Stu. See, when you have two killers, it's easier to navigate around. Billy was in jail, so how could he possibly have made those phone calls and chased Sidney in the bathroom? Billy got on her good side, made her think he was trustable. Stu is even more surprising because of his personality and demeanor. Fun-loving guy, not too bright but has a good heart. Whereas Billy, dude, I'm sorry, you've given creep this entire movie. Your very first scene and you gave me the ick. You being the killer, not too surprising. Also, damn, they done shot my boy Randy. They take Sidney into the kitchen and we get a whole bunch of lore dropped. Number one, these two were the ones who orchestrated and committed the murder of Sidney's mother, framing and putting all of the blame on Cotton Weary, proving he was innocent the entire time. They kinda retconned this in the third film, but for now we're sticking with this story. Number two, Sidney's mother had an affair with Billy's dad, causing their divorce and therefore causing Billy's mother to leave, or in his words, abandon him. And number three, damn, said you gave up the cat to your mother's murderer. It's a whammy of a year for you. Even Stu looks shocked, like damn dog, I thought we were doing this for fun. Now this next rant, you can just chalk it down to Billy just simply being a psychopath, But you mean to tell me your dad was being a hoe, and Sydney's mom was also being a hoe? They have an affair, your mom finds out, she leaves, and abandons you? Now yes, that is traumatic. However, therapy maybe? You just went straight to murder, killing Sydney's mom, members of your student body, a police officer, and on top of that, you plan on framing Sydney's dad. I mean, it makes sense, the cops already suspected him, it'd be easy. Well, except they're the villains, and this is the final girl, so I don't think it's gonna go down like that. But as usual, I'm getting ahead of myself. They plan on making it look like Sydney's dad snapped and went on a killing spree due to his wife's death anniversary coming up. Literally tomorrow, or should I say today, because it's midnight. Leaving them to be the sole survivors. In an attempt to make it look like they were attacked, they both take turns stabbing each other. Billy, however, goes a little too overboard. Billy tells Stu to grab the gun, but it's gone. Gail Weathers in the house. She forgot to take the safety off. Damn it, Gail. Billy kicks her into a pole, knocking her down as she lands on Dewey's body. He's about to shoot her, but then Stu realizes Sydney's gone. They headed to the kitchen to find her, and the phone rings. And it's Sydney with the voice changer, giving them a taste of their own medicine. I always loved how Stu never really had a motive. He claims it was just peer pressure, which is sarcasm. I think deep down, Stu just really wanted to kill people and live in his own sick and twisted horror movie, while also looking to Billy for approval at every chance he gets. I don't think he gave two shits about Billy's revenge. He was just in it for the thrill. Then we get another one of my favorite lines.
Did you really call the police?
Make your sorry ass like
My mom and dad are gonna be so mad.
Matthew Lillard, everyone. Absolutely fantastic. Billy goes to look for Sydney and she bursts out of the closet, stabbing Billy with the end of an umbrella. Dressed as Ghostface, mind you. So cool. Stu comes running and tackles her. She knees him in his ghost balls and he punches her in the face. He pins her down while also trying to make a weird pass at her. She bites his hand full force and smashes a glass vase over his head. Then knocks the entire television onto his head. Sydney, you got two bodies tonight. Bravo. Oh, make that one. Billy's still alive. After Randy comes back, Sydney thinking he was dead, he gets punched in the face by Billy, who's about to land a killing blow, but then he gets shot by who? Gail Weathers in the house. Yeah, it's less funny the second time. Billy falls over, presumably dead. Sydney takes the gun from her hand, and Randy notes that this is usually when the killer comes back to life to get one last scare.
Not in my movie.
We hear another loud crash, and it's just Sydney's dad, and Dewey's alive. Gail gathers herself together and is already in front of cameras to break the story, and then it fades to black. And that, my friends, was 1996's Scream. Man, it was so much fun revisiting this movie. I had always loved the slasher genre growing up, watching movies like Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, Halloween, Child's Play, but there was always something about Scream that just stuck with me. And it holds up pretty well for being 30 years old, and Screams are still being made to this day. Granted, they took a few breaks in between and the quality has declined. The casting is great, the kills are brutal, and the story is solid. Yeah, it could be kind of campy and cringe, but that's the point. That's the magic of the original Scream. Purposely criticizing horror movie tropes just to commit them scenes later. Have you seen Scream? If so, let me know what you think of it down in the comments below. Also, I'm curious, what was your first slasher? If you haven't, give it a watch. Especially the first three movies. Heck, I'd even say the fourth one was pretty solid too. A lot more solid than the third one, that's for sure. Shout out to Doobie Biscuit, awesome name, for being the latest member of the channel. I got a lot more time on my hands now, so I'll be working on some really cool stuff for my members, so be on the lookout. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed today's video. My name is Greaves, and as always, I will see you guys in the next one. Peace!